Hello fellow Gwent players, tomorrow is the expansion and we have all the revealed cards ready to be reviewed, but I'm quite busy today so I have to quickfire review all of these cards. So no big sort of talking about the card, I'm just going to give you a quick opinion and a rating. So let's just get into this. Salamandra Lackey, at the end of your turn if you gained at least one coin this turn, boost self by 1. This card's really good. I would say it's kind of auto-include in Syndicate. Like there's a lot of decks that can play this card. I'm not sure how it works with Tax Collector or like how you have to position it with Tax Collector so that it can get the value off of Tax Collector, but there's a lot of ways to just give this like an 8 value in a round even without something like Tax Collector to synergize with it. Like this is probably like, I'd say even an 8 out of 10, maybe even a 9 out of 10. Like this card is going to be seeing a lot of play in a lot of Syndicate decks because it's just a really, really good card, honestly. Saber-tooth Tiger, Zeal Order transforms self into Saber-tooth Tiger Stealth. Saber-tooth Tiger Stealth. At the start of your turn, damage all enemy units that are alone in the row by 2 and transform self into Saber-tooth Tiger. So this is kind of a pretty good sort of opening play for Scoia'tael. Like, it's uninteractive, and it's not really an artifact that the opponent wants to deal with. You can also kind of really nicely set this up with movement cards, such as Dragoon, so you can, like, drag units to one row and other rows. So this is definitely a really good early sort of engine for Scoia'tael. And I don't think opponents want to use their artifact removal with Heatwave on this. Like, this is going to be really, really good in something like Elves, where you can just play this, and if they remove this with Heatwave, then they don't have the Heatwave for your Feign Death. So really, really powerful card. I'd probably give it like a solid 6 to 7, more tending towards the 6. I don't think the card is that impactful on games, so yeah, definitely a 6 out of 10. You will see this in a lot of decks, but not every deck can play this because I think you still need to run movement with this card to sort of get super good value out of it. Like, in itself, it still does good value by just being what it is, honestly. Erland of Larvik, deploy, boost all units in your deck by 1, adrenaline 3, also gain immunity. Order, remove boosts from all units in your deck, then boost this unit by the same amount. So this card's really, really interesting. It's probably one of the most interesting effects in this expansion, but I don't think it's that good. Like, you want to play this in round 1, like you have to play this in round 1 to get the max value, but then if you don't use the order ability to remove the boost, you're only playing this for 6 carryover realistically, because you're going to only draw 6 cards in the remainder of the game. Now you could have cards like Amphibious Assault or Neuromancy still in your hand, so you will maybe gain 2 or 3 extra points off of that. And I mean, with Northern Realms, this ability also is really good, but I don't think this card is good. Like, I'm not sure if I'm wrong here, but I just don't see this card being as good as it should be. Because in round 1, if you use the order ability, you want to use the order ability with the immunity, and then you do only play a 4 tempo card. So basically this card kind of forces your opponent to pass, which is kind of good for Northern Realms, but I don't know. The card's kind of, it seems kind of weird. It doesn't seem as strong as it should be for such an ability. So I'm going to give this card a 3 out of 10. I might be wrong with this one, but I don't think this card's very good. Gaedl of Lylia, melee. At the end of your turn, move self to the range row and boost a random allied unit on this row by 1. Ranged, at the end of your turn, move self to the melee row and damage a random enemy unit on the opposite row by 1. Adrenaline 3. Instead of a random unit, affect all other units in this row. So this card's amazing. This card is really, really strong. Like, it plays as an engine that the opponent kind of has to deal with. Like, even if the opponent deals with it, like, it still plays for really good amounts if you're just using it for the sort of melee into back row ability, where it basically plays for the same ability as Dennis Cranmar. And that's really, really powerful because the opponent really wants to deal with this card. Also, you can set this card up really, really nicely with a lot of movement cards to also get good value when it moves to the front row and damages all the opponent's units. So a really powerful finisher for Scoia'tael, because Scoia'tael has an easy way to swarm cards and also has a very nice way to put stuff in the front row. So definitely a very, very good card, and I'd probably give it a solid 9 out of 10. I don't think it's a 10 out of 10, but it is definitely a 9 out of 10 for sure. And here we have Griffin. At the end of the round, shuffle this card back to your deck, keeping its boosts. This card is so cool design-wise, but I don't think it's that good. Like, it is one of the coolest designs in the game. It also works with the Erland, which can take this card's boost away if you didn't find it in round 3. But you have to find this card in round 1. You have to boost it up a lot. And then the opponent has a tall unit or like a card that he tall punishes, or he can reset or poison or just lock as well. So really, really awkward card to play, but it's a meme card and we love to see those. So yeah, Arch Griffin, like I'm looking forward to playing these all-out decks on certain cards like this Arch Griffin, where you're just gonna boost like this card a lot and just gain a lot of sort of carryover value if it stays alive. So yeah, Arch Griffin, a very funny design, not a good card though. I'm giving it a 3 out of 10 for sure. And here we have Griffin Witcher Ranger. Boost self by 1 for every unit on the opposite row. In order, transfer all boosts from self to an allied unit. So this is a pretty good ability. The problem is that you can't actually set this up in Northern Realms. There's no card in Northern Realms except for that one Chariot card that can set this up. So you kind of have to rely on this being in your hand in a long round, and that's kind of bad because like in a short round this card is god awful, like probably one of the worst short round cards in the game. But it does have interesting synergies with cards like this Griffin, and the thing is this is kind of like a late game play, so you're not really protecting any engines with this because you want to play your engines early. So yeah, I don't know, this is probably like another 3 out of 10. Because, like, it's really awkward in a lot of situations. So, yeah, I don't think I can give this higher than a 3 out of 10. Selective Mutation. Draw a card with Adrenaline of your choice, then shuffle back a card from your hand to your deck. Spawn a Witcher student on each allied row. This card is amazing. This card is one of the strongest cards for this expansion because it's 6 provisions. It doesn't actually thin your deck, but it gives you a card that you want, and that's huge. And it also plays for 4 tempo, so there's a lot of synergies this has as well with spawning these 2 Witchers. For example, with the Northern Realms dude that transforms all the Witchers into himself with the shield. So very, very good card. And yeah, I mean, this card is just really powerful, honestly. I'd probably give this like a 9 out of 10, or yeah, it could be a 10 out of 10, but I think it's not going to be a 10 out of 10 because you still kind of have to play this for adrenaline cards. So maybe like a 9 to 8, more tending towards the 9. Like, it's really good. It's a 6 provision, give you the card that you want, which is really powerful for its ability, honestly. Then we have Snowdrop. Zeal, order, draw 2 cards, then shuffle 2 cards back to your deck. Whenever you draw a card, boost self by 2. Now, this is a friggin' awesome design because it works with leaders like Morvran. It works with cards like Burn of Bran as well. Like, the card plays for a lot of points in Morvran, and you're definitely going to play this in Morvran decks if Morvran somehow finds some new synergies or new point plays. And in general, also, this ability is quite good. Being able to sort of give you 2 extra mulligans for 6 points is pretty decent. And then you also have the additional ability of boosting itself by 2 whenever you draw a card. So that second ability isn't really good with every deck, but the decks that do want to play for this are going to be really happy with an ability like this. So yeah, I'd probably give this like a solid 7 or 6 out of 10, probably a 6 out of 10, because there are only certain decks that can run this card, and it's going to be really good in those decks. So that's why I'm going to give it an above average rating. Haren of Ulivo. The first time you spawn a unit each turn, spawn a 1 power copy of it on this row, then give it Doom. This card is insane. I'd probably give this card a 10 out of 10 because the decks that run this card are going to absolutely love it. Like, the best deck you can think of here is Revenants. Like, if you play this in Revenants, this is really scary in Revenants. This is also really scary with Cairnthir to combo with certain Death Wish cards. Not Ruahin, not Deathlaf though. Those don't work if they are doomed, I think. Then there's also Igor that you can play with this. Like, there's so many cool effects you can copy with this. And I really like this sort of combo card that is a neutral and can be put into pretty much every deck. Like, it's not going to be put into every deck, but the decks that play it are really, really going to benefit off of it. So this card is really, really powerful. I bet you will see this in Revenants quite frequently, for sure. Anyway, we have Salamandra Mage, Tribute 4, damage 3 adjacent units by 2, Adrenaline 5, whenever you pay a tribute ability, gain 1 coin. So the Tribute 4 to deal 6 damage. This is obviously best with off the books. They're kind of giving off the books some good synergies this expansion. And I do think this card is not terrible in off the books, because if you actually get the value off of it, it plays for 11. You're paying like 3 coins for that. It's like, but like, Syndicate doesn't have that much movement, so probably a 5 out of 10. Like, it's not too fantastic, but it's really, really okay. Like, it's really, really okay, but nothing more than that. Gellard Blindhigh, profit 3, fee 1, poison an allied unit and boosted by 2, cooldown 1. Now the profit 3 on this card is misprinted. It should have profit 2, because this card would be broken if it gave you profit 3 for 7 provisions. That's just kind of ridiculous, isn't it? But fee 1, poison an allied unit and boosted by 2, and cooldown 1. So basically, you're getting 2 points for 1 coin once every turn, if you have the coins, obviously. And the cooldown here is obviously necessary, because the ability would be way too strong to get an extra point for every coin you spend. So that kind of makes the card a bit weaker, but I think in general, this is like the sort of puzzle piece that ties this whole self-poison archetype together. So I would probably say this gets like an 8 out of 10. Now, I'm not sure how good self-poison is going to be, but if it's going to be good, this card will also really be good, and that's why I have to give it an 8 out of 10, because it's the whole thing that kind of ties the entire sort of deck together, and that's why I give it a 8 out of 10. Probably going to be worse, like, in action than the rating that I probably give it, but I'm still kind of sticking with that opinion. Leo, deploy boost self by 1 for every Witcher you control. Yeah, I mean, this card's a solid, like, even 7 out of 10, I would say. There's a lot of ways to swarm Witchers nowadays. There's a lot of Witchers in the game, and it's just kind of like a basic vanilla finisher for those Witcher decks. So yeah, a solid 7 out of 10 I would give this card. And yeah. Then we have Viper. At the end of the round, put this card in the opponent's graveyard. At the end of your turn, while in graveyard, banish the lowest cost card from it. If Viper is the only card in the graveyard, give it Doom, then summon it to your opponent's random row. This card has probably one of the coolest designs in this expansion. Like, there's a lot of cool designs in this expansion, don't get me wrong, but this one is so unique and so Nilfgaardian. I really, really love it. So basically, this card has a bit of a downside and a huge upside. So if you play this in round 1 and the opponent is not able to kill this, you can basically allow yourself to sort of give yourself carryover for round 2 if the opponent doesn't put enough units in his graveyard or special cards in his graveyard by the time that happens. Like, if you don't understand how the card works, it's really complex, because the card goes into the opponent's graveyard at the end of the round, and then it eats a unit every turn, and then it comes back to your side because it says opponent's graveyard. So that means your side of the field again, because this card should be in the opponent's side of the field. Now the problem is, if this actually gets killed, it's going to be in your graveyard and going to eat your cards from the graveyard, which could be quite awkward in certain situations. So yeah, Viper, definitely an interesting card for Nilfgaard. And as for rating, I'd probably give it a 5 out of 10. Like, I don't think the card's gonna see play in every... Maybe he does see play in every deck. Maybe the card is kind of broken. Yeah, I give it a 6 out of 10. I give it a 6 out of 10. Salamander, Beast, Profit 1, deploy, poison a unit. Tribute 9, poison all units on the battlefield. Instead, increase the profit by 1 for every allied Salamandra unit. Let's forget about that last one. That poison all units on the battlefield instead is absolutely crazy. Like, there's the combo that everyone's talking about. It's Madame Louise, Sienna, and this card. So basically, you have to combo this with Fallen Rayla. So the sequencing goes, you play Azar Javed, you play Fallen Rayla, you play Madame Louise, you play Sienna, and you play the Salamander card, and you have to have 9 coins in your bank, and you basically create an entire board wipe with this. So Not sure how that's going to work out, but if it's going to work out, it's going to be very funny, and I'm definitely going to make a video around this card for sure, because I do see the potential in it, and I am really, really looking forward to playing with it as well. So Salamander, a really, really nutty card, and even without the sort of Sayana and Louisa combo, the Tribute 9 is really, really good. Like, you can just poison a bunch of your opponent's units and then kind of kill like 3 units during one turn. Like, this card is kind of insane. I'd probably give this like a 7 out of 10. Like, it could be clunky at times because it is not that high tempo, and the opponent might have to be forced to bleed this out of you. So yeah, we're gonna just have to see how well this does, but I do think this card is actually quite powerful. And here we have Vi, Death Wish. Shuffle Vi back to your deck, then increase its base power by 3. So this is like a Ruahin that gets stronger every time you consume him, and he goes back into your deck. So you have to have a lot of tutors for this card. Monsters has quite a few tutors with Naglfar, and then you have a Neuromancy Decree, etc., etc. And you do need a lot of consumes on your side of the field. You don't want to give your opponent the chance to Heatwave this, because you want to keep consuming and munching on this card. So Vi definitely will be a very interesting card. I don't think it's going to be competitive. I'd probably give it a 4 out of 10, because it's kind of a meme card, and it's a strategy in itself that goes way too tall, because you have to consume this card a lot. And consuming like 11-point units, 14-point units, it's really, really difficult, like, to not run into tall punish with this card for sure. Then we have Chimera. Deploy, consume an allied unit. Adrenaline 4, boost all copies of consumed unit in that unit's row by 1. This is probably the best bronze that they've revealed. I give this a 10 out of 10. Like, this is a really, really strong bronze card. It supports the Swarm archetype, and it's also just, you know, a consume a unit for 5 provisions. Like, the card really doesn't have a downside in the deck that it's getting played in. Like, it's not going to be played in every monster deck, obviously, but the Adrenaline 4 ability is definitely something you want to play for, and it really helps out your Swarm synergies in a lot of decks for sure. Then we have Care Serend. Resilience. Deploy, spawn, and play Witcher Griffin Adept, Witcher Griffin Mentor, or Witcher Griffin Ranger. Order, boost a unit in your deck by 3. So this card is one of those location cards that they've added. Artifacts with resilience. Wow. In this case, the resilience doesn't actually do that much, because the order to boost a unit in your deck by 3 is kind of bad. Like, I mean, it's not bad, but it doesn't really need resilience. So it doesn't really synergize with the fact that it has resilience. But I mean, the ability isn't terrible, right? Like, it's just a good, like, ability. Like, I'm not sure how good these cards in general are going to be. Like, they're usually going to break even on provisions, though, and that's what's really important with this. So, Care Serend, I'd probably give a 6 out of 10. Like, I can't give these guys below average, because I do think they are really powerful with their deploy and the order added to it. So, yeah, really, really powerful cards. It's going to be hard to evaluate these locations yet, because these are cards you need to sort of see in action to actually give a proper opinion on them. Salamandra Hideout. Resilience, so this is another location. Deploy, spawn, and play Failed Experiment, Salamandra Abomination, Salamandra Mage, or Salamandra Lackey. Order, move a poison from an ally to another unit. So this is very powerful. This is really, really good. Like, you can basically kill a unit with this. This is like a morale where you have to have your own poisoned unit, so it does require a bit of setup. And the card really, really is strong, isn't it? Like, this is a really powerful card in my opinion. Like, you do need to set it up, but being able to set it up, like, you can, like, late game kill something with the order ability, and that's really all that matters with this card. Like, I'd probably give this like a 9 out of 10 even. Like, this is a really, really powerful ability with Syndicate Poison. Dol Blathanna. Resilience. Deploy, spawn, and play Succubus, Fuka, Chimera, or Hybrid. Order, move the highest power unit to the top of your deck and spawn a drone on both sides of this card. Now, Nilfgaard is gonna love when the monster player plays this card, because then they can, you know, start playing their deck manipulation stuff, and this is kind of risky against Nilfgaard. Like, I don't know if this is going to be good, though. Moving the highest power unit on top of your deck is always good, But there's no reason for it to have resilience because you're always going to use the order ability in round 1 to sort of play as a mata for next round to get the Vi, the big Vi. You want to get that big Vi on top of your deck, don't you? So that's what that card does. Like, the 2 drones aren't that significant here. I mean, they are. They give you 2 points, but other than that, I mean, probably give it a 6 out of 10. Like, I can't, like, as I said, it's really hard to evaluate these cards just by reading them. You're gonna have to see these cards in action, more or less. Here we have Wreathed. Order, reset this unit's power and spawn a number of rats on this row equal to the amount of boost it lost. Cooldown 1. At the end of your turn, consume a unit to the right. So this is a very interesting ability. It works with the rat synergies. It works with beasts. It is a consume engine that does consume a card at the end of your turn, so it's always going to get the consume. It's like a better Slizard, I would say. Like, it is actually a really good slide. Like, the 2 extra provisions are really worth it because the reset on this is also really powerful because, you know, you're swarming yourself on the row and then you can, like, play Glusties and so on and so forth. So to, like, reuse this ability, like, you can really clog yourself with this card, but you don't have to use the order ability as well, and you don't have to play units to the right of this card as well. So Wreathed is a pretty decent card. Is it going to be competitive? Maybe. I actually don't know. I don't know how to what to really rate this card. I think that card can feel clunky, but in general, I feel like the card is a very synergy-based card, so it's going to not see play in every deck. But the decks that it will see play in are going to be quite nice, so I'd probably give this a 4 out of 10? I think it's still below average, so 4 out of 10 I think is fair. Then we have Gorthur Gvadd. No idea how to pronounce this one. Resilience, deploy, spawn, play Viper Witcher Adept, Viper Witcher Mentor, Viper Witcher Alchemist. Order, move a unit from your opponent's graveyard to the top of your deck. Top of their deck, sorry. I misread that one. But yeah, this is really interesting. This is the one card where the resilience really means a lot because keeping it for round 2 can be quite powerful for an order ability because then you can sort of swap the units with like certain cards that swap the units, or you can just play Cantarella, but Cantarella is like the basic one that exists here. I think Han Marvin's Blue Dream into Cantarella might actually be a thing in Nilfgaard. I can actually see that being a play. So Gorthur Gvadd, I'd probably give it a 7 out of 10. Like, as I said, it's really hard to evaluate these cards, but I think this is one of the stronger ones. Like, the order ability doesn't actually put any points on your side of the field, but it does play for an insane synergy that could be used against the opponent quite nicely. And then we have Haren Caduc. Resilience, spawn and play Bear Witcher Adept, Bear Witcher Mentor, or Bear Witcher Quartermaster. Order, heal adjacent units by 3. This is a 9 out of 10, I would say. It's very basic, but like it's just really good. Like Skellige gets these vanilla abilities that just like are power crept, and that's why Skellige is going to be tier 1, I think, when this expansion comes out. So yeah, 9 out of 10. Like, it has super synergies with the cards that it can spawn. Like, spawning a adept or the Bear Witcher is just really, really powerful. So yeah, let's just move on to the next card. Stick a Castle, deploy, spawn and play Cat Witcher Adept. You know the deploy. It spawns one of the Witchers that are coming out this expansion. And order, move 3 allied units to the other row. Now, I don't like the fact that it's limited to allied units. Like it works with that. It works with the Cat Witcher. Or the Cat Witcher Mentor, I think the card is. But like, I would have loved for this to move any unit. Like, if I was able to set up like my opponent's side of the field as well with this, that would be so much stronger. This is probably the worst one, actually. I think this one's just gonna get a sad little 5 out of 10. Like, it works with the sentries and all. It's like super synergy based, but if I was able to move my opponent's units as well, then there's not that much reliance on the synergies with your cards. More that you can just play this card for, just removing units from the opponent's row, like a Nivellan. Like, how good is that? Then we have Warrit the All-Seeing. The man's blind. How can he see, though? We'll never find out. Deploy melee, put the highest cost card in your opponent's deck on the top of it. Deploy range, put the lowest cost card in your opponent's deck on the top of it. This card's really, really interesting. Like, this card's kind of scary, actually, because your opponent kind of has to really play around this. Like, the moment this card drops, like, what's he gonna do? Like, he has to sort of get out his highest provision card. Like, this really punishes bad draws, and that could be really problematic for Nilfgaard in general, to just be, like, the most annoying faction. Like, it is already a really annoying faction, and with this deck manipulation archetype, it's gonna be massively annoying in a lot of situations, and I love it. I love it. I absolutely love it. I'm gonna hate it, but I'm gonna tell you now that I love it. But yeah, I'm gonna hate it a lot. Like, this card is kind of disgusting. Like, imagine you just play this in Cantarella and you find, like, your opponent's scenario, or like the amphibious assault, or like an oneromancy. Like, how dumb is that? Like, in round one, that's so busted. Yeah, this card's really, really powerful, in my opinion. Like, it's probably like a 7 out of 10. Actually, no, is it? I think it's a 6 out of 10. I think it is above average. Like, it's a 7 for 8. That really forces your opponent to play awkwardly, and that's kind of what Nilfgaard wants to do this expansion in general. Then we have Bear Witcher Quartermaster. Order damage an allied unit by 1, then spawn a Witcher student in this row. Charge 2. So this plays for, I mean, it damages a unit by 1, so it plays for 6 technically, but there's obviously a lot of synergies to be had in Skellige with damaging your own units. So things like Queen's Guards works, things like Berserk work, things like armor, like you just hit the Draco Turtle twice and ta-da, you get an 8-point card that also synergizes with the Draco Turtle. Like, this card's just good because it's very basic, and Skellige is just good because Skellige is just very basic. I'd probably give this a 7 out of 10. Yeah, 7 out of 10 sounds good for this one, I think. Yeah, like, it's just a solid card. Like, it swarms your side a little bit, gives you some Witchers to work with, also synergizes with some of this damage stuff that might be on your side of the field. Yeah, there's really no downside with this card, if I'm honest. Then we have Cat Witcher Adapt. Deploy melee, give an enemy unit bleeding with duration equal to the number of units on that unit's row. Deploy range, give an ally unit vitality with duration equal to the number of units on that unit's row. So yeah, it's like a bad version of the Dryad Enchantress, technically. So I'd probably give this like a 4 out of maybe even a 3 out of 10. Like, the card is a bit clunky because it's a bit slow. You have to set this up, and you don't really have that high of a ceiling because you have to play this at some point because statuses don't actually, play immediately. You have to wait for them to actually go off. So yeah, that's why I'm just giving this a 3 out of 10 because it's a bit too slow for my liking. Then we have Maxi von Decar. Look at your deck in order from top to bottom. You may shuffle your deck, then put a card on the bottom of it. Now, this probably gives you a choice of whether you want to shuffle your deck or not. This card's going to be really powerful against Nilfgaard. Like, this is kind of like the Nilfgaard counter that you want. And yeah, that's pretty much all there is to it. Like, I'm not sure if this card's going to be played a lot. Like, we have to see how good Nilfgaard is. Like, this card's really relying on how good Nilfgaard is. Or just, like, being able to shuffle your deck, though, is also quite nice. Or just being able to give you that information is quite nice. As a 6 for 6, I don't think this card's that bad. I think it's like a 5 out of 10, actually. Like, you can see people playing this card just to make sure to, play around Nilfgaard while also making sure to know what's in their deck and to see what's in their deck. But the card's really useless in, like, a late round because, like, this is just like a round 1 card where you're like, oh, okay, I have this information now. Let me shuffle my deck. Or, oh, yes, this is a good state in my deck. Let me just keep it the way it is. So, yeah, Maxi von Decar, definitely a powerful card. Not sure if it's going to be played, though. It does not look that great in later rounds, but in round 1, it's pretty good. And here we have Viper Witcher Alchemist. Deploy, look at the top 3 cards of your deck and put one on the top, then swap top card of your opponent's deck with yours. So this works with the artifact, but this card's just bad. It's like a Fury Merchant for 5 provisions. Like, if it looked at the top cards from your opponent's deck, it would be good, but then it would be kind of broken. So yeah, I give this this is probably the worst Nilfgaard card that they've revealed, so I'd probably give it I'd probably give this a 1 out of 10. This is a really bad card in my opinion. Like, this card's way too RNG reliant. I mean, you can set it up, obviously, but the tempo on it is just too low for its ability, and if you find like 3 good cards on top of your deck, like you are forced to swap, right? And that's not good at all. So yeah, Wiper Witcher Alchemist, a 1 out of 10. Then here we have Dire Bear. Units in this and opposite row can't be boosted. Now, this is not an 8 for 9. CDPR have confirmed that this is going to be a 7-point card. And as an 8-point card, I gave this a 10 out of 10. As a 7 for 9, it's not a 10 out of 10 card, but it is still really, really powerful. It does counter Endrego Larvas quite nicely. It does counter Northern Realms Anna Stringer quite nicely. Like, there's a lot of things this card counters, and you can resurrect it with Sigrifa's Right if the opponent manages to kill it. But as a 7 for 9, it's not as powerful as it was as an 8 for 9. Like, 8 for 9 was a bit broken. Like, 7 for 9, I'd probably give it a 8 out of 10 still. But as a 9, as this card that you're seeing right now, it was definitely a 10 out of 10. But as a 7 for 9, I do feel like an 8 out of 10 is appropriate. We have Keldar, resupply, spawn a Witcher student on this row, Adrenaline 4 at the end of your turn, spawn a Witcher student on this row. So this card's really overstated. Like, it's super overstated with 4 and 9, like 4 power, 9 provisions. It's like a Von Hurst, but it's kind of worse than Von Hurst, isn't it? Like, it's not that good. Like, this card just isn't that good. Like, it synergizes really well with that one Witcher, but this card dies so easily. I feel like, I mean, if it stays alive, like, it's good, I guess, but, like, you have to play this, like, turn 5. Like, you can't even play this early, and the resupply isn't that great, I think, with Witchers in general, so gonna be interesting to see whether this card is... I'd probably give it like a 2 out of 10. I feel like the 4 body with the 9 provisions is way too high. Like, the 9 provisions is just... It's so expensive, I feel like. Like, Von Hurst is 8 provisions, and he kind of does the same thing with hidden cash, but unconditionally, whereas this is conditional. Like, if you play this before the Adrenaline, you might just play a 4 for 9 if the opponent removes this, and that's not good. So you have to play this for the Adrenaline to get at least 6 for 9 if the opponent kills it, and that never feels that good, to be honest. So yeah, Keldar, pretty bad, honestly. In general, Northern Realms in this expansion is looking really, really bad. And the last card of this review is Succubus. Death Wish, at the end of your turn, summon a different copy of Succubus from your graveyard to a random row and give it Doomed. Adrenaline 3, don't give it Doomed. So this card is a pretty funny sort of synergy card. You play this with things like Operator or Cairnthir, so you can get as many Succubi on your side of the field as you can. Because playing this as a 2-of doesn't really work that well. Because you want to play this as some sort of like Ruahin, a bronze Ruahin that requires a bit more sort of synergy cards. But it's a cheaper Ruahin, and you do have the cards like, as I said, Operator and Cairnthir to create multiples of this, where you can kind of like keep shuffling them back into your deck. But there's a lot of requirements to be met there, because you do need like the Operator in hand, the Cairnthir in hand, and then you also need a bunch of consumes to munch on these Succubi. So I'd probably give this card a 3 out of 10. Yeah, 3 out of 10. It's quite synergy based. It's not terrible, but I don't think you're going to just play this as a 2-of in sort of a deck. I think this card kind of requires its own synergies, and I don't mind that. I don't mind bronzes that kind of play as your win condition, which is kind of cool. So yeah, I like the design on Succubus. Not sure if it's that fantastic though, but it definitely can see play in some decks that play for a Succubus, right? This is like a full-on Succubus deck. You'll have to see it. And yeah, that was my quick fire review. I mean, some of them weren't as quick as others, because like there are some interesting cards in this expansion, and tomorrow is the day that we finally get these cards and get to play with them. I'm really, really looking forward to it. I hope you are too. And if you enjoyed this card review, and if you're looking forward to this expansion, please leave a like, subscribe for more Gwent content, and I'll see you tomorrow.